right, so we will call our meeting to order, and if we could start with the roll call, please, Ms. Stevens.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So first, Matthew Bettis.
Here.
Miss Tanisha Fitzgerald here.
Present.
Brandon Harden. Bill Lyons. Councilwoman Glenn Kinsey. Here. Dave Miller. Anderson Olds. Regina Olam. Miss Deborah Porter. Here. Stanley Taylor.
Here.
And Mr. George Underwood.
Here.
Thank you. If everyone's reviewed the minutes, is there any discussion or modifications to the minutes as written? All right, hearing none, I take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Let's go ahead and move on to our announcements before staff reports. We have,
Well, I don't have a personal announcement, so I'm going to actually hand the mic over to Miss Deborah Porter. Go ahead. It's a beautiful
There you go,
news. Share with the public. Please do. Thank you, Madame. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know why Tanisha wanted me to do this, but on Saturday, May the 6th, several of us, including myself, graduated from the Johnson University with our Masters of Arts in Ethics and Leadership. So,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
That was that, we needed to hear that.
Thank you.
Celebrate excellence.
Of course, find the good and praise it. Are there any other announcements? Other than me reminding y'all each week to come to the East Knoxville cleanup on the 20th.
That morning.
That morning, and then Matthew, you want to talk about what's going on that, well, in the afternoon?
It's in the minutes, it's on there.
In the afternoon?
Art for Change at the Change Center at 3:30. We got lots of tickets left. It's going to be a cool evening of the arts featuring our local students. Valley Middle School, Austin East, Bearden. I think I got a student from West. I got several students doing some cool stuff. And then the headlining act of the fundraiser is a black ballet company out of Memphis that we perform. So.
Right, and I don't think Matthew understands the full scope or doesn't want to communicate the full scope when we talk about equity and bringing these types of activities in our community and providing equity and access to those experiences that, aren't typically afforded our kids, so.
Yeah, they'll also be doing a free ballet class on Friday that evening before for the community, for any youth that want to come perform. So they'll get, or come dance. It'll be fun. Fun professional dance training for all of our kids.
Thank you. Okay, before we move to staff reports, anything else? No? Okay. So,
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to announce that on June the 6th, there will be an unveiling of the honorary street naming for Big John Tate. That will be held on Lakeside. We're excited to hopefully have former Mayor Randy Tyree there, who actually presented Big John Tate with the keys to the city here in Knoxville when he did bring back the heavyweight champion to Knoxville, Tennessee. So that will be on Friday. Also, there will be a lot of activities going on. I know that they're going to be already broadcasting live from Golden Gloves that day. The Beck Center on that Friday will be hosting a panel and also a screening of documentaries. So there'll be food, there's going to be dinner and a movie. And I encourage everyone to please come out. We hope to get kids there. You can get excited about learning that forgotten history and also potentially in boxing and athletics.
Do you have flyers for that already?
I think Renee is working on it as soon as I get them.
Because we need to, I want to get them out on our networks too.
Awesome, thank you.
did you know about the Aaertf celebration details for that kid?
I do have not at my notes, I used to ask them, but,
It's that Friday before Juneteenth. Is that June 2nd?
It's on this.
17th, Madam Chair, I'm not certain if it was appropriate at this particular time, but I'd like to add agenda item number 8 for discussion, community engagement session. If we could, I'd like to add discussion on Emerald Roof's East project.
Sure, and we actually will, it's gonna come up before the end because it's gonna be a part of the executive report. All right, so let's move into our staff reports.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a pretty resounding voice, but just making sure. So I have a few pieces. As you all can tell, I kind of combined the grant and staff updates into one. So I guess I'll first start with the grant piece. So I recently came across an opportunity with the Community Connect grant program. It's a federal opportunity. This grant looks to provide financial assistance to applicants that will provide service at or above the broadband grant speed to all premises in rural or economically challenged communities where broadband services do not exist. I listed the grant category, which to sum that portion up would be under the Business and Commerce Community Development Grant. The award ceiling is $5 million. And the grant application closes June 20th. Currently, I'm seeking what local organizations might be interested in supporting this initiative, and I'll keep you guys posted whether we decide to apply for this opportunity or not. So staff update wise, so Mayor Buchanan recently took a trip to Washington, D.C., where she made sure that she let a few of our pamphlets, I have a copy here, with Vice President Kamala Harris's team. So that's super great that we're actually getting the word even to Washington about some of the work that we're doing here. So that's very exciting. I definitely want to be sure to share that news with you all. As many of y'all may know already, regarding the investments for the task force, the mayor announced that she would be investing $300,000 to support our initiatives. So that's another great win and a great aspect for us, being that we get to have more funding coming in to support our programs and initiatives moving forward. My other point of business is regarding the National League of Cities. So I've been working with their senior fellow for the Office of Financial Empowerment and Economic Opportunity, Dennis Campa. His background is working with cities to help them on the economic side, but also on the racial equity side. When he heard about the task force in Atlanta, he was very intrigued. I actually read all their bios. But he's really interested in helping support some of the work for our strategic planning session. And so he offered his services. He offered to fly down when we establish a date for that framework to help us expand upon the work that we currently have. In the meantime, I'm continuing to gather data to assist with the work of the State of Black Knoxville report. So I'm currently waiting to get an updated timeline from the Atlanta Feds regarding when we can have that completed. But that concludes my update, grant and staff updates. I also went ahead and made a copy of the actual grant itself, like the overview of it, for those who might have any further questions.
Are there any questions for Tiffany right now? Or any discussions? We're going to move into committee reports, and I do want to say that the executive committee, one of the things
Madam
we did.
Chair, sorry, there's one other piece I did forget. Please forgive me.
Pause.
Madam Chair. So there is another update from Jordan, our intern, that I forgot to include in my report. I apologize. So you all have two different copies from her. The first one is an update on what she's been doing so far in March, like this month, well not March, from April up until now. So she went ahead and listed the impact that other cities are using regarding racial equity. She also went ahead and looked at all of our meetings, all of them, and made a list of all the speakers, what company came to speak with the task force. I know that was a desire from Madam Chair herself. And then she went ahead and composed our output, or our general output from the East Knoxville Community Open House. So here, she went ahead and combined what was a total of 36 community inputs. And she listed the top 3 areas, which is neighborhood development and recreation, health and wellness, education, investment in Black businesses, dash business development for Black businesses. So those are our 3 main categories when we tallied up all of the responses. And then that follows up to this next page you all have, where she broke down some of the overall breakdowns for each of those categories. Feel free to let me know if there's any questions or anything else I can further elaborate from that report for you.
I'll
Is that
say-
finally?
No, that's fine. No, that's very helpful, and it's gonna lead into one of our discussion points when we look at the strategic planning. So the executive committee, while we were talking about committee reports, one of the things we thought about and that we'd like to recommend is for our other subcommittees, perhaps meeting quarterly, so that we're meeting, when we have something, an event or a review, so that you're not trying to meet every month when you really don't have anything every month since we meet, separately. But we like to get your thoughts on that.
I'm in support of that.
Anybody else? Is that something that requires a vote? Probably not.
Are you moving to make it to vote on that, or is it like a point of discussion?
Kind of a point of discussion, just trying to see.
I don't think it knows specific.
Yeah.
As long as the bylaws don't say how regular.
No,
the
that
meeting is.
should be custom.
Okay.
So is that schedule going to be set tonight, or how do we move forward? It's like,
Could you read that one more time? I didn't hear it.
yeah, this, the initiation part.
When does it start?
Yeah.
Quarterly starting.
Okay. I mean,
So,
Would that be something that you all would want to hash out in the
The strategic
strategic
plan,
planning
okay.
session? And to hash out a more full schedule, since the goal is to have that session sometime in June. And then so that way, even if we start in July, which I think some of the committees may want to do, since it's kind of been a little staggered when they met to now, so maybe start rushing July, with the quarterly meetings with that. But then in the strategic planning session, you may hope.
you might say every other month.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I guess our point is we don't want to tie your schedules meeting just to be meeting without a solid agenda. So I think waiting until the strategic planning to resume will be a good idea. And speaking of the strategic planning, one of the things I wanted to get input on are the outcomes. So we talked a little bit about making sure we have a diversity, equity framework and what that is. And we also want to create one so that it can be a model for other organizations in the city as a whole. So a rubric of sense, how do you evaluate or assess your contributions in that space of equity for the city of Knoxville? So that's one outcome that we talked about. But as we're getting toward that agenda, finding the facilitator and nailing down those details, I did want to ask the committee, are there any other ideas as far as outcomes that you'd like to see from our strategic planning session?
I think that that's absolutely number one. But as I reviewed this list of feedback that we got from the community meeting, there really appeared to be several items on this list that indicate to me that there's a lack of education and awareness of what is really going on in the community, by some of the things that are listed here. So I'd like us to maybe spend some time going through these and then kind of looking at how do we address these. how do we address, number one, the education piece on some of these things that are listed that people are not aware that are already in the community or they're planned and scheduled, and we're working on those things like the East Knoxville Greenway. When people talk about more green spaces, when people talk about education in elementary school and Park Ridge, I don't think that people understand what it takes, the number of children that it would take for another elementary school, how it would take away from the elementary schools that already exist in the district, and several other things.
Okay. Let's add that as an agenda item then, that we actually review our community feedback and input and determine those things that are action items. Also, how we connect them to accurate information or information toward resources that some of the solutions may already be in place or in the works and they're not.
To add to your point, I was going to suggest, would you want me to list out the strategic plan bullet points?
That'd be fine.
So when meeting with the executive committee, we made a list of a few bullet points that we thought about. Feel free, members, to go ahead and any additional items pop up, feel free to share with the group. So one of the aspects that we have listed is measurable goals, assessment tools, the action rubric, which you just mentioned a few seconds ago, timelines and action items, responsibility assignments, best practices, and equity partners. So that's a running list of what we've created so far. If you think of anything right now, obviously feel free to voice it. If not, feel free to send me an email.
Does that sound appropriate to everyone? Okay. The other thing we discussed was our agendas moving forward. So in September, National League of Cities is planning a visit. And so we want to kind of meet with them, have an opportunity to collaborate, get best practices, lesson learned, let us know what we're doing, and then they can support that. And the thought is we could do it as during our regularly scheduled meeting time or have a separate section. I don't know if anyone has a preference, but we can kind of work toward that if you do. And we don't have to decide that today, but know that's coming in September.
Another point that I know we mentioned as a talking point is regarding the West Knoxville Community Open House. The executive committee made a standpoint in which they want to propose a recommendation regarding the involvement for that.
Yeah, I have a few things for under our recommendations, but so that's September. So I'm back to the agenda. So in June, we're proposing no meeting in June. Is anyone opposed to that? Just because of vacations and schedule conflicts that we're already aware of, it's going to be difficult. Okay.
And senior should need to have a strategic planning session.
Right.
So it would be completely empty. There would be work done in June.
All right, so our other recommendations include, and Tiffany just mentioned, share your point now, sorry.
Oh, yes, the engagement for the West Knoxville Community Open House on June 1st.
June 1st. So that would be another June item, and it would be similar to what we did for the East Knoxville Open House. And I just want to reemphasize that when we talk about African American equity, we're talking about citizens throughout the city of Knoxville, and a lot of times East Knoxville and African American are kind of synonymous terms when communicated, but they're not. We really are looking at across the city. So is that something that we want to do first? Cheryl, has that been confirmed, the location? Beard Mill. You'll get us the details. I think we can follow probably the same process since we've already used that same template. The other recommendation we had an opportunity to discuss Emerald, and they have come to several of our meetings and shared how they gather community input, the intentions of, that are in the plans. Nothing I don't think is solid, super solid, but as an executive committee, we recommend support of the project. Any discussion?
I think we had spoken about a formal letter to you have to solidify our support.
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, I would be in agreement with that. I think that everyone has done due diligence as far as the outreach, not just amongst the leaders in the community, but also the residents, parents and students in the community. Initially, I think some people were a little concerned with the space that was being proposed. However, for those of us who live in the community, we realize that that space is really only used once a year, and that's when the fair is in town. And I think that that is a small price to pay for the possibility of having something in our community that will support our children, our families, as well as the community in its entirety. And so I am 100% in favor of our recommendation to support that.
Does that recommendation require a vote? Should, okay, can I get a motion? Second.
Second.
It's a motion for the committee, so.
Yeah, so we can just vote. All right, all in favor of us providing a letter of support to Emerald Youth Foundation for their plans to create a space in East Knoxville?
Before we go, just a question.
Sure.
So Emerald does phenomenal work throughout the community, across the community, across the town. But I just wonder, as well, even though that space still got a lifespan, but person, Kinsey, has been vacant. I just wonder personally, now I'm going to support, I'm going to vote for it, I'm support it, but I just wonder, what if that space, which is a lot of land, big footprint, could be used to improve the housing deficit in East Knoxville? That's,
So, constructing some housing units on that space, is that what you're saying? Affordable housing units?
I mean, we've talked about going to really put the emphasis on affordable housing. But again, I'm going to support it, I'm going to vote for it, but I don't have that concern.
No, that is a great concern. I think one of the things is who's come forward willing to utilize the space.
Have people known that that's really an option because it's been owned by the city?
No, I don't know that.
Because I don't, so, but I can't imagine there wouldn't be developers who could have an opportunity to develop that space. But again, I know where this task force is, and I'm okay with that. But I do want to go on record as knowing I've got reservations for that reason.
I think that's noted, and also as we look at our equity framework, I'll just throw this out here now. Even though I planned this discussion for the retreat, I understand that landlords, homeowners are now looking at alternative ways to rent their properties, which makes it an even a bigger challenge for those that need subsidized housing. And the wait list is growing, and I have read this past week across cities all, over the United States. So we need to think about that as well. So to your point, that is a challenge. I don't know, as far as the dent that would make using that space, even if it's on the table. But your reservation is noted.
Thank you.
Well, and let me speak to that briefly. Developers are not shy in approaching the city if they have an interest in property and land, and housing development. That particular space, I will be frank with you, as it relates to building affordable housing units, that's really where developers are going, not so much building a community that has affordable houses on them. And so I think that would be a totally different animal. But, one of the things that I think of when I look at that land, that from a community perspective, if we have the resources to be able to move something on that land, to approach the city on it, it would have been done by now. And so what I don't want to do is look back, if I'm still living in the next 40, 50 years, that land is still vacant and still only being used once a year. And so I think that kind of speaks to the lack of the equity and the wealth that we're trying to, through this task force, start building from a generational perspective. So we will be able to have people that will come to the table, come to the city, that look like the community, that we're trying to rebuild the restoration in, and we'll be able to invest and have that equity in our community. And so,
The other thing I want to add related to that space that I hadn't thought about until maybe about a month ago, when I was thinking about it, was how, is there a way that Emerald building something there might be a catalyst to other development around the place? And I think that is a possibility that it's probably got a shorter timeline on it than what we're talking about in terms of trying to do units. Because even thinking through like what RFP processes look like and how they work with the cities, so even if that was what we wanted to see happen on it, that puts us further out from trying to see stuff happen. I think this could probably lead to some more economic development in the shorter term. I just imagine that's a possibility, that if there is something like that there, then maybe somebody on Magnolia near there or around there is going to want to build some other stuff around us, which we know we've been talking about trying to see increased opportunities in Burlington. And if this is happening into Burlington, then I would imagine that it'll make it a little more attractive to other outside investors to want to invest in that area. So that's something I thought about, but I think I hadn't considered until recently. I think it makes me even more too tall. That was my feet. That was my foot. That's all.
Hey, Mr. President, on this
13. What'd you say?
He said, you understand dropping the mic, but there's no need to do it.
Yes.
I will say this, even the way you communicate to them, I would hope that if this is going to go forward, that they could at least, in some kind of way, reserve even a small plot, or just even a monument of where in Shower Park, where the black family is, that's where we could go. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
And that needs to be memorialized.
That's more than reasonable, I think.
that's how it is. Wow.
And I see notes being taken about that request now, but we will make sure that they're reminded of that request.
Yeah.
That we're able to honor that legacy and that history, because you're right, past us, we want to make sure that it's remembered. So I think we can figure something out there.
And again, I think and I think Emerald has been very clear that this is just step one, trying to get community buy-in, but there's still a lot of money that they would have to raise to even make this happen. So, and I don't even know that, if you guys actually started I don't even think you started the fundraising process, because the city, we've not gone into any type of agreement from the city perspective
Correct.
at this point.
Yeah, but I think being realistic, I don't think Emerald has had a problem accessing capital they need for any project that they want to do. Is that fair?
I mean, I hadn't been involved in too many of those discussions. But yeah, there hasn't been any type of donors secured, any type of capital campaign happening or anything like that for the project. Just because we really wanted to do this side of the work first, getting buy-in, making sure it was something that people in the community wanted to see, making sure that we had input from everybody before moving anything forward, asking for a RFP, RFQ to be put out. And so none of that has happened. And so we're literally just gaining support right now before we move to that next step.
Any other discussion?
You would need to decide who's going to be the one. We talked about it, but what's the practicality of making that happen?
That's all I should have left. Yeah, if you could draft a letter.
I'll send you one. That's right.
With the note that Mr. Underwood mentioned, and include that in
Include
the
that in.
support. We're in support of this, but we strongly recommend or encourage there to be,
Desire.
yeah.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Tiffany, I believe that's all the notes I have from the executive committee reports. Okay. Proposed recommendations regarding United Way.
So, we have Ms. Khaki president, and technology is set.
Yes.
She has a presentation for us regarding, I know the task force has had several conversations in the past few months regarding some questions for the TANF program and the ARPA dollars with United Way. And so we have Representative Ms. Kathy Reynolds with us to present on some of the initiatives. While we're getting that started up, she also left us all with a folder with more information on it. So I'll go ahead and hand over the mic to you.
Yeah. So I'm Kathy Reynolds. I'm the East Tennessee Collaborative Director at the United Way. And like Tiffany said, I'm really just here to share about our new program that is funded through our grant from the Department of Human Services. I'm really excited to share this work with you guys. We've just gotten up and running in the last couple of months and are just really thrilled to be able to share this work. So the TANF Opportunity Act was established in June of 2021 to help spend down some of the $700 million of excess TANF dollars that were discovered several years ago. A Families First Community Advisory Board was created, which is meant to help distribute these funds. There are participants on the advisory board from state agencies, local government, private and nonprofit organizations, business, faith-based organizations, as well as current and former TANF recipients. And so ultimately, the goal of using all of these $700 million is to help really innovatively change the way that the Tennessee safety net works within our state. All of the grant funds are meant to help folks increase their self-sufficiency and to decrease dependence on government subsidies. So the United Way received a planning grant in the fall of 2021. That was followed by a 3-month collaborative process. This was prior to my time on this initiative, but with several local organizations, we got a lot of feedback from participants, from TANF individuals, from providers in the community, and all of that feedback was put into our grant proposal, which was presented in the spring of 2022. We're one of 7 grantees across the state regarding the Tennessee Opportunity Pilot Initiative, and we're the only one serving Knox County and the surrounding counties. There's another grantee in Northeast Tennessee, but we're the only ones in this community. So this is kind of the fruition of the East Tennessee Collaborative. Our ultimate goal is to reduce poverty, increase economic opportunity pathways, enhance social supports through an evidence-based relational approach called Empath. So the United Way is the grantee, we're the backbone organization, but really the work is done through the collaborative with our 5 community partners, Boys and Girls Club, the Knox Area Urban League, Centro Expandio, the YMCA, and the YWCA. We've adopted this model out of Boston called Economic Mobility Pathways, Empath for short, and it really takes kind of the brain science of trauma and lays it over a coaching relationship model. The idea is that living in poverty can in and of itself be a chronic trauma, and so it poses a lot of challenges when you consider kind of the impact of trauma on brain development, executive functioning, decision making, future thinking. It's hard to get out of that survivalist mindset and really be able to thrive. So the idea is that by pairing families with what's called a mobility mentor, this coach, they can really create space, a safe space for individuals to consider what their dreams are, and then the mentor walks alongside with them in achieving whatever those things are. The bridge to self-sufficiency is the theory of change that is kind of underlying all of the empath work. It's kind of small. I can send this out after. And there's also a copy in your folders. But this really kind of tangibly lays out all the different areas where a family can establish goals. Very early in our programming, the mentors will sit with a family and they will identify where they are and where they want to go. So for example, if we've got a participant that's in subsidized housing and they want to move up to market rent or potentially into home ownership, this is where they're starting, and then our goal is to help them figure out what's the path to get you from here to here. Part of this bridge to self-sufficiency in our outcome measures is scored, and so we have a very tangible way to see where are people when they start. We check back on it quarterly, and so it's really motivating for families to be able to see, like, well, I really feel like I'm not making much progress, but when we look at where you started and look at where you are right now, there's a lot of momentum that families can garner just from visualizing where they've been and where they want to go. So we currently have 9 mobility mentors. We're adding 8 more in the fall. We just sent out an RFP in hopes of expanding beyond Knox County and Anderson County. So hopefully we'll be more of a regional footprint here in the coming months. So the mentors, again, really utilize that bridge to self-sufficiency to guide their work. All of our families have access to workforce development resources. And then also we're partnering with the Urban League to help them develop a workforce placement program. So they are getting the buy-in from local businesses. So once we've got people with a certification, they've got the skill set, they're ready to be employed, they go to the Urban League and they get matched with an employer who's going to pay them a sustainable wage. We're also utilizing and developing a shared resource network called Tennessee Community Resource Network. This is a shared platform that we're hoping will become more community-driven, where folks that are in our program, a lot of people that are experiencing poverty have a lot of different providers involved, and they go to one place and they tell their story, and then they get referred to another place and they tell their story. This is kind of a cohesive space where providers can coordinate care for folks that they're serving. So if somebody's an ETC and we refer them, let's say, to Goodwill for some workforce development, we're a part of that person's care platform, and so is Goodwill, and then we can coordinate in that platform to be able to serve them more efficiently and effectively. Beyond empath and kind of the coaching relationship, almost half of our grant dollars are going directly to support individuals. So this kind of falls into 4 buckets. We're able to utilize funds for supportive services. So anything that's going to support a family and moving up on that bridge to self-sufficiency, we can use our grant funds to pay for. So for example, we had a woman who was a car detailer. She wanted to get into car wrapping. She knew that that was going to be something that could increase her wages really, really quickly. So we paid for her to go to Nashville. We paid for her certification. It was a week-long course. She's come back. She has a better job. It seems like a small thing, but it was like $3,000 that never would she have been able to do that on her own. That's kind of a big example, but other examples include a woman who couldn't pay for childcare, so we're paying for her childcare for her to be able to go from working part-time to working full-time. Again, anything that we can justify to help support a family on their journey, we're able to use these grant dollars for. Additionally, our families have access to goal action payments. So these are kind of small incentives that families are able to earn when they achieve a goal. So right at the very beginning, they're going to say, let's say I want to go to school for welding. Well, let's make sure you've got all of the application documents that you need. They're going to set up a SMART goal, and once that goal is accomplished, they'll get a $15 or $20 gift certificate. Again, it seems small, but we're compensating people for the things that they're doing. Additionally, we're able to use funds for transitional benefit support. the system isn't set up in a way that really promotes economic mobility. So as folks achieve success, they get a promotion at work, oftentimes they're worse off because of a loss of benefits. We are head-on addressing that benefits cliff. So if somebody gets a promotion at work and they lose their housing voucher, we can pay for their rent for several months while we help them acclimate to that change. Similarly, we're able to do the same thing for food stamps or child care vouchers and those kinds of things. And then lastly, we're able to utilize funds for emergency support. Life happens, it happens to all of us, and a lot of times people don't have the back savings to be able to stay afloat when those things happen. So we're able to use those funds for that as well. Here's some more information about TCRN. We've got 200 licenses that we're able to distribute to community partners. We're really trying to be intentional in distributing these kinds of licenses to agencies that might not already have something like this. So Helen Ross McNabb, they've got all kinds of documentation systems, but some of our smaller nonprofit providers, this is a really costly situation. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide these to agencies that are maybe wouldn't have access to them otherwise. Eligibility, we are working with families, so the participants must have guardianship of children in their home. They can be relative caregivers. They must be U.S. citizens. We are working mostly with people whose basic needs are met. So our grant is only 3 years. We have a very short turnaround time. And so, folks that are homeless or maybe experiencing significant mental health crises, this is not necessarily the undertaking that they can take at this time. So we're looking for people who are not in an emergency crisis and who are interested and willing in pursuing self-sufficiency. We are really trying to keep diversity, equity, and inclusion at the forefront of the work that we're doing. You mentioned an equity framework in our planning phase. We had 3Cubed and Swartz and took the feedback from all of the people that we spoke with and used that to create a framework that's guiding really every step of the work that we're doing. We're looking at equity in our processes. So how is the work that we're doing impacting all of the people that we're hoping to serve? We're looking at equity in access. So who might we naturally be missing? Who's underserved in our communities? We're getting referrals from agencies. Well, not everybody's connected with an agency. So what can we do in our recruitment measures that are going to touch people that are otherwise not connected to these kinds of resources? And then additionally, looking at equity in our outcomes. We're a ways away from that. We just got started. But this is a constant conversation that we're having. We have a Centering Equity Subcommittee that's meeting monthly. They're reporting back to our advisory council. And I think we're all coming at it with just humility and vulnerability and knowing that we're not always going to get it right every time, and creating a space to be able to adapt and evolve and change as time goes on. So we are hoping to enroll 600 families by May of next year. Some of the outcomes we're hoping to achieve are just overall economic self-sufficiency, improved well-being and financial management, average annual income increases, and then from a systems level, we're really wanting to see improved coordination between providers to ease the burden on the families that we're serving. And that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. So is 600 the cap for participation?
Yeah, so I think we're going to keep serving as many families as we can until the dollars are gone. We started enrolling families in February, and as of today, have 90 families enrolled. The enrollment deadline is by next May, as imposed by the state. We got a late start. All of our grantees did, so they've already passed a legislative fourth year, but haven't attached any dollars to that. We're really hopeful that the funding is going to continue and that we would be able to keep serving families. Also, the United Way is just really committed to this program, to this collaborative, and so despite only being new at this, we're already talking about sustainability. We see a lot of value in this work and just how it can help people in our community.
So, go ahead,
Go ahead.
So one of the biggest things, KCBC actually just completed a survey. One of the major things where it says what were the barriers why people would not participate in job training programs. So it was because their benefits, they start working,
Yeah.
they make a minimum amount of money, and now they go from paying maybe $0
Right.
to $400, which is still a lot
A lot.
for families who need. You mentioned that you guys would subsidize that for a couple of months. And I wonder if is that truly going to be able to help a person who has perpetually lived in the state
Right.
for years?
Yeah.
I mean, learning how to budget and those types of things, I don't know that that's actually going to take hold just a couple of months.
Yeah.
So is there any exceptions where you would pay for, help them with that?
Yeah, so we have a lot of federal restrictions because these grants come down and it's complicated. But one of the tools that we are using to kind of help combat that is the CLIF tool out of the feds out of Atlanta. And so we're talking about like that CLIF from the very beginning. So, and a lot of the people, as we started getting referrals and we're talking to families, they're like, yeah, I've been there, I'm not interested in this. And truly like experiencing that was a trauma in and of itself. And so what we're trying to do is really plan for that. Like the CLIF tool can, based on your career, your earnings, the changes that you're making financially, can predict like the month that you will lose a benefit. And so we're trying to manipulate some of our dollars so that like how can we maybe pay for supportive services in this way, and then you can put dollars away in preparation for when you cross over that benefit cliff. So there's a lot of planning and really trying to be intentional about when you get there, knowing you're going to get there, what does it mean, and also recognizing that, yes, we might only be able to pay for your rent for 4 months, but we're also not going to walk away at that time either. Like, we're going to help you, we're going to be in this with you, and I don't have a great answer other than, you know, we're using all the tools at our disposal to be able to navigate that in a healthier, more supportive way.
And I guess y'all will have more data by the end of the year, as
Yeah.
you've got people who just started in February, they're gonna approach that.
Yeah.
My question was, where are most of the referrals coming to of that 90 so far? How are they coming out? Like, just what are you seeing?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of community engagement. We got a lot of press. We had a kickoff in early February, and like we were on the news a lot, and that was great. And honestly, a majority of our referrals are self-referrals from individuals who have seen us on the news or who have heard about the work that we're doing. We're getting a lot of referrals, like in Anderson County, one of our mentors is serving like an entire apartment complex. So it's like telling their friends of this is how this is going, this is really helpful, you should do this. It's been surprising because I think we thought our referrals would come from agencies, but they've come mostly from individuals. Yeah.
How do you manage case management in terms of the families? And this sounds so familiar to the Department of Human Services when they actually did this type of program. So does that, are you mirroring what they've done, or?
We're really trying to be more relationship focused. Technically, it is case management, but we're really promoting it more as like a coaching, a partner, kind of trying to remove that power dynamic that comes from like a service provider consumer relationship and walking alongside people as their partner on their journey. So.
You know, and my other thing is that when I think about the communities that could really benefit from this, you know, trusted messengers, because when people start saying, oh, you're going to help me, you're going to help pay my rent, you're going to help me, and a lot of people have bills and debt, and I think you mentioned here that they don't pay. They just don't have the access to pay it. And so when they start working, it's literally that they are digging themselves out of a hole that feels like there's no way I'm going to succeed in that. And so my assumption is that even with the budgeting, are there some funds that will look at their debt and financial situation and help them be able to manage through that as well?
Yeah, so we've used that supportive service. It's been surprising how liberal the state has been in approving some things. Like truly, if we can tie it back to how it's gonna help someone on their journey, they've been pretty liberal when they're approving. So we paid, like one of our participants had an old credit debt that was related to housing, and it was preventing her from being able to get into better housing. So we were able to pay that off. We paid a lot of KUB, like we're just gonna get you a reset, right? It's $1,500, $2,000, it doesn't matter. Like kind of trying to like those big chunks of things that we can pay to help people so it isn't like you're clawing out of the hole. Like, and I think that that does create a safe space. Like, you don't have to worry about this. We're here and we're going to help you with it. Or we've got a participant who had never looked at all of her debts. She'd never written them all down. She had payday loans. She had credit cards. She had all these things. So the mentor was sitting with her and she was like weeping. She was like, they didn't do that for a reason, right? It was not able, like mentally, it was self-preservation. Like, I'm just not going to look at this. And so the mentor and I were talking like, well, do you think we could maybe pay off some of these debts? And a lot of them were like $100 here, $200 there. But when you add it all together, it was like, just not going to happen. I was like, what's your biggest expense aside from all of this? And she was like, her rent. Like, her rent's $1,200. I was like, okay, let's pay her rent for 12 months, or for 4 months. And then let's see if she's not paying her rent, what can she put towards this? And so a lot of it is, you know, navigating state grants to figure out what's allowable, and then how do we use that reset as a momentum to be able to move forward. And again, we're just getting into it. I'm like, send it all. We're gonna send you have the craziest request for like an allowable expense, we're sending it. We're sending everything to the state because we want to be able to utilize these funds in the ways that families feel are the most meaningful to them, not what we think it should be spent on, or what is going to be the most impactful for you and your journey right now.
So how would we refer someone, we know someone, I'm sure everyone around this table knows a couple of someone.
Absolutely, yeah. You can make a referral on the website, the United Way website. There's an interest form in there that can be completed online. You can email that to us. You can send referrals directly to our partners. We're really trying to make it like a no wrong door approach. Make sure that families have choice in who they feel would be the best service provider for them. So just, my card is in there, you call me, and we will take care of it.
This just seems so different than what we've typically seen as far as like family empowerment programs where it's like, let's get you a financial literacy coach and then see what happens.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that it's different.
What we have to do to get, because I feel like, I was asked about the referrals because just thinking about which families we're connected to and whether they would see or know to ask. And I hate to say it, but your average family is not going to go through the urban leagues on a regular basis. They're not going to just walk through, so I'm wondering, like, could we get some of these at the Chain Center? Could we do a recruitment event at the Chain?
We would love that. And we're really trying, like, that's one of the areas that we're really stuck in is like, our recruitment has slowed down a little bit. And I was trying to figure out, but there's so many families out there. And so we're trying to get creative on like, could we find neighborhood ambassadors, somebody that could be like a champion for our program. So if you guys have ideas for us of getting this out there or how, like reaching unreached people, I don't know how to do that. We talked about doing,
we know everybody.
coordinators, like at Montgomery Village, or doing this or doing that. But we want to make sure that this is coming from trusted people and that, I don't know. We're open to suggestions. Yeah. And that it isn't just the United Way, like out there, like, hey, we've got this great big thing. Like, I don't know. We're open.
This could be life-changing. That's why I kind of asked about the trusted messengers because for a lot of people who've lived in poverty for so long and it's been generational, it's hard to believe that somebody's really going to do this for me. And then there's also an element of shame for some people. Having to be very transparent and open about my situation and that I messed up financially all these years or whatever. So definitely want to get some more of these. I definitely will speak to you after the just want to clarify, very specifically.
Yeah.
I'd like to refer.
And I will say, like, the mentors that we have on board are just, like, amazing. They're a really diverse group of women. There are only women. I didn't do the hiring, but, you know, they are women with lived experience. They are coming to us with, you know, having worked at CARM, having worked at CAC, like, they have a wealth of knowledge. And it's been really neat to watch, you know, they don't work at the United Way. They are not our employees, but they're supervised by 2 people in our organization. And they come together and they're like brainstorming and talking, and then they take that knowledge back and those values to their organizations. And so I really do believe that we'll see a trickle effect with the work that we're doing through this collaborative and how hopefully it impacts, you know, larger organizations in our larger system.
So I have 3 questions.
Okay.
Make sure.
Yeah, y'all are grilling me.
Could you go back to the self-sustainability?
The bridge,
Yes. Or
this
that,
one?
yes.
Yeah.
So each of these pieces is a part of the mentoring and coaching, right? It's a holistic, and they get points
Mm-hmm.
so that they can kind of see themselves moving.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So for example, I just pulled this data today. Like a majority of the average bridge score for housing is like in this area. So almost all the people that we're working with are in subsidized housing. But already we've got some people that are starting to move up. And the lowest scores that we've seen are in savings and debts and then housing. And you can see how those 3 things would tie together. So we're starting to kind of look into what resources are available in our community that can help with savings and debt in a like a biggest bang for a buck kind of situation. And then the housing, you guys already talked about this today, but I mean, it's brutal out there. And so we're already looking at our budget for a year or 2 to figure out, is there like a housing support person that we could bring in to help address some of these things? Those are the loudest trends that we've seen, or just debt, savings, and housing. And we've got educational attainment is one of the higher scores. People have certifications, they have bachelor's degrees, like they have skill sets that are marketable and should be, in theory, earning more dollars, and they're not. So even in these early months, it's interesting to see some of the data that we're already pulling together as where people are, and then we'll kind of lay this out around where we're spending our dollars. What kind of supportive services are we putting in place? What impact is that having in this score going up? So we're really excited about just what will the data tell us. I'm not a data person.
Well, my next question is a data question.
Okay.
But I'm just curious about, you're serving about 90 families right now. Do you have the demographics of those families?
So we don't have the demographic, like our mentors have not been super diligent about entering demographics into our system. So when we pulled that last week, there's a lot missing. So we're working on getting that in better shape so that we can see what are the trends in the demographics. So I will have that, but I do not have right this second.
All right, so obviously we would be interested in
Sure.
how many African American families are participating.
Yes.
So even without the actual numbers, is it majority?
Yes.
Majority?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question then, with the agencies, or maybe it's a suggestion of going to places that typically people go when they need help. So you mentioned CAC. And if there's signage or information
Yeah.
for those counselors, so if I'm going there, or like I know KUB has social service workers and counselors, if they do, if someone comes to me with this problem or this issue,
Yeah.
I can refer them.
So we're working, CAC does have some of our pamphlets out, and we've gotten some referrals there, like I saw this when I went to CAC. KUB, actually, we're working with their counselors to have access to the licenses, so they should be able to make referrals. Like if they get people that are calling, they can send them straight through TCRN to our program for referrals. But that's a great idea. If you have other ideas or lists of places that we should put cards and things, please let me know.
Have you thought about the operational entity that does the financial literacy?
Yes.
As part of moving people who are, their credit scores are very low, and then the way that Operation Hope works, I used to work on.
Okay.
So I do know they work with them for several months to get them, and since they're getting points for this,
Yeah.
it would be a way of moving them up.
Yeah, so the Boys and Girls Club's actually partnering with Operation Hope to do like a program for just their participants where they'll provide food and childcare over like a 6 or 7 week course. So we're really excited about that. Again, they're using supportive service those dollars to be able to fund kind of a whole course for their participants.
So each agency can choose the program that they want to meet those goals?
Yeah, so ideally they're doing it based on what is best for a participant. But, if the Urban League has a therapist that they just are gung-ho about, they can make all their
Oh, yeah, that's not a negative. I think that getting away from the cookie cutter models is something that is interesting and that different communities, different families have different needs. So to broaden the scope of who can provide these services and support. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. I was just curious.
Yeah, and we're also wanting to use those supportive service dollars for smaller nonprofits. So we're hoping to diversify even where those dollars are going to be able to, support local small businesses.
Anyone else?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Kathy for this presentation, laying out all this work. I think the work that you all are doing is very similar to that of the task force, especially regarding economic mobility. I'd love to continue the conversation on how we could support it, more specifically to the point that was brought up earlier, get more of our families listed into this great resource. And so, like I said, I know there'll be more continued conversation on our end. Thank you for
Yeah, don't be shy. My card's in there. I have more flyers.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, as we near the end of our meeting for today, just community engagement, continuing to look for opportunities where we can engage and hear from the community, get more input, like the list that was compiled before. And here are a few opportunities coming up in June, but I always think about emailing Tiffany if you hear something where our presence could be supportive and get feedback. But we do want to be visible and connected. So that's pretty much the gist of the community engagement discussion, and some events are listed there, in addition to the ones we mentioned as far as the Big John Tate, the cleanup.
June 1st, West Knox Open House.
June 1st, West Knox Open House.
I was going to make a note as well. I'd love if we could have more discussion on, and from that discussion, decide on which of these events we'd like to participate on, and maybe list out some ideas on the levels of engagement we'd like to have in each of them, if we want to, whatever, however the discussion.
No, that makes sense. So typically, this is where I would ask the Community Engagement Committee to make recommendations and giving them all the details. So for instance, in the parade, do we want to be in the parade? Do we want to go to the parade? For the Vet Cultural Center, Racial Justice Town Hall, is there a presence there? What does the engagement look like? Rooted East, what does that look like? I understand there's a vendor fee, but we're going to see about that. So I think we have to think about what type of engagement we want.
Can I make a suggestion? Just since we just did the East Knox Open House, we said we want to do something similar at the West Knox Open House. Maybe at these 3 events, it's just being present as opposed to having a a table and the whole thing, as opposed to so we're not getting posted notes under the table. And these things are all happening in East Knoxville, which we just got done in our last one. So maybe that helps
It's
us.
presence.
So maybe it's just being present and figuring out what that looks like.
I know, not as a direct counter, but as an idea, I know in our conversation with the executive committee, I know a lot of members brought up the fact that people will be outside, like people will actually be engaged in the community. So maybe this could be an opportunity that we do potentially, you know, it's up to you guys as a body, but as something to consider regarding engagement.
So these come up prior to our next meeting, or right after? That's right, we're not having this meeting, so I guess we would need to decide.
today.
All right.
Feel free to have a card and have for the parade, and you all do the parade.
Another idea, potentially, committee-wise, kind of like what we did with the East Knoxville Community Open House, we moved the community engagement meeting up. And so maybe there's more further, I don't know, discussion about the details, like, you know, I don't know, I guess.
All right, so we need to decide today, though, what our level of engagement will be. So Matthew recommended that we're visible and present. Does anybody have any other ideas as far as being a vendor or anything else?
I would recommend participating in the parade if we have enough people who would be available to do so. I know we don't have a banner or anything, so I'm not quite sure how we would.
Well, there's time to get a banner and figure that out.
I think we have a banner or something, we can walk in the parade, or even have a car in the parade. I do think because it is MLK as well as Juneteenth parade, that would be important to support that. We expect that it may be the other two events, those of us who are available would just be there. Those other two there.
Is there a registration process for the parade? Okay.
And we can go to the website, or I can do it for you, so I'll be more
Any other comments or suggestions around our community engagement plans for that?
I was just gonna ask, I know it's mentioned, walking in the parade is kind of a very clear, or driving. But when we think about presence at other events, if there are some thoughts on what that presence should look like. Like, are we just going as members of the community to be supportive, or are you going as a representative of the task force? And so, how is that known to anybody but you?
So as it relates, if I can take that chair, the back event, I think we would let the host know that, hey, we're here, there are 4 of us, here's who we are, and we're representing, we're here on behalf of the task force. It would be a little bit different with the Root East event because that is an outdoor event at the Botanical Gardens, which is kind of like a festival type atmosphere. So I'm not certain what our presence will look like as it relates to that one or not.
Let me ask on the town hall. It seems like what we do goes hand in glove with town hall discussion. But I don't know what Reverend Kessler has. I don't know how that's structured. But I do think that's an event that even if it's just us being physically present, I would hope that we would say something in that space.
So to Gwen's point, I think maybe we can reach out to Reverend Kessler and see how we can let her know we plan to be there and maybe she can work that in. I think also with us getting down and increasing our visibility, that's the goal, so that people know who we are. But on a side note, I need, and maybe the rest of the committee wants to, like I need a stack of those flyers, because people will know who I am when I start handing them out to everybody. And so that we take that opportunity. We're a part of why we're on this committee is because we are in a lot of spaces around the topics that we're interested in that support equity. And so being able to have those available to share in those spaces would be great. And then Matthew, are you the chair of the community engagement subcommittee?
Not sort of, not really.
Not
You
really.
know, just kind of.
Yes, you do.
Whoever shall assume the role. If you would just give us some guidance, you know, put your heads together and think about how we can best, like you just did with that, make our presence at these events. And there are other ones that we can, so possibly moving forward, if you bring an event to the table, maybe also the suggestion as far as how you can participate or what our presence would look like. All right, so we don't have anyone signed up to speak for public forum. Is there anything else before we adjourn? Let me hurry up before y'all think so. I'm just kidding. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.